Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, American Comics. Opening sign in Accelerator 11. Chapter 11. Miss Polaris arrested. The sign-in was successful again, and the super ability obtained this time was energy absorption. Levi's checked it and immediately understood the function of this super ability. Simply put, this super ability is an optimized version of the naughty super ability. It can absorb all the energy of the target, such as life energy, super ability, electrical energy or thermal energy, etc. And after absorbing the energy, it can be used for itself in a short time, and it can also heal its own injuries. The most important thing is that this ability is completely controllable, not passively closed like a little naughty. It can be said to be a very powerful super ability, and at critical moments, you can even temporarily improve your strength through energy absorbing. With one more whole card, Levi's was in a good mood along the way. Soon the two were on a plane to Mexico City, where Miss Polaris's underground organization of mutant was located. On the plane, with nothing to do, Levi's asks about Clarice's underground organization in mutant. After some understanding, Levi's had a general understanding of the mutant underground organization. At present, there are not many people in this mutant underground organization, only a dozen people. The leaders of the organization are Polaris and Thunderbird. It looks like this group is just developing. Levi's remembers Polaris being fostered by Magneto at his grandmother's house. Somehow, instead of going to Magneto's Brotherhood, Polaris started a mutant organization himself. As for the members of the organization, most of them are known to him. For example, she can spit out pink mist to modify other people's memories. She is a good friend of Polaris. Another example is Wes, who can create illusions. There is also Marcos Diaz, who originally relied on ability to sell drugs and later joined the organization, Polaris' boyfriend in the original book. However, it seems that he has only just joined. While chatting, Levi suddenly looked at Clarice curiously and asked, "Clarice doesn't know if you have a boyfriend in the organization?" "No." Hearing his question, Clarice shook her head hastily. "That's it, haha." Levi's thought she was in such a hurry to go back because she wanted to see her boyfriend, but it turned out that he had misunderstood. Immediately afterwards, Levi's closed his eyes and planned to take a break. There were still several hours before Mexico City. Seeing him closed her eyes, Clarice couldn't help biting her teeth lightly, wanting to say something, but she was hesitant to say something, and finally closed her eyes with a helpless sigh. Speechless all the way, until evening, they finally came to Mexico City. This is a bustling city, and Tony Stark's promotional poster can be seen on the huge billboard not far away. Speaking of which, Levi's has not heard any news about Iron Man so far, and I think the current Tony Stark hasn't become Iron Man yet. After eating something with Clarice, the two went to the location of the underground organization. This is an abandoned steel mill. As soon as they arrived here, the two of them were discovered. "Who are you?" At the moment it was already dark, and a man with a flashlight approached, and only then did he see clearly the appearance of the two of them. Clarice Fang. "Yes, it's me, you are Harry." Clarice also happily called out the other party's name. Levi's also recognized the identity of the black man in front of him. This guy is called Harry, and his super ability is an enviable stealth ability. No wonder he didn't find this person just now. However, it is estimated that he can be invisible without using super ability at night. "Clarice, you haven't been caught." "Who is he?" Harry looked at Levi's with some wariness. "Don't worry, he's a mutant too," Clarice explained hastily. Hearing that it was mutant, Harry's vigilance relaxed. "Come with me." The two then followed Harry to the underground of the steel mill. Although it is underground, it seems to be well decorated inside. "Let's see who's back." Black Harry took the two to the lounge area, where there are many mutant activities. "It's Clarice. I didn't expect you to come back. What exactly is going on?" Everyone was a little happy to see Clarice, but soon everyone became a little puzzled. Seeing this, Clarice began to tell the story of being discovered by the Sentry Secret Service, and after being separated from everyone, she used ability to teleport to Mutant Academy. After hearing this, everyone understood what happened to her. Why didn't you see Lorna? Did you go out?" After searching for a long time, Clarice didn't see Lorna, and she was suddenly confused. Hearing this question, everyone involuntarily fell silent. This made Clarice have a bad feeling in her heart. Lorna was taken by Sentry Secret Service. The speaker is John Prosperity, codenamed Thunderbird, who is also one of the leaders of the mutant organization. How? Clarice couldn't believe it. Yes, that night, after we separated, Lorna was accidentally stunned by someone from Sentry's Secret Service, and I had no choice but to leave first. Thunderbird frowned and explained. Then why don't you go to the rescue? Levi's frowned. His words made everyone stunned for a while, and then everyone discovered the existence of Levi's. Who is Clarice? Thunderbird looked at Clarice suspiciously. Oh, I forgot to introduce it to everyone. He is Levi's, a friend I met at Mutant College, and this time he has always protected me here. Clarice hurriedly introduced. Hello. Levi smiled and held out his hand. Thunderbird took his hand and said, Welcome. Thank you very much for helping Clarice. It's right that the mutants help each other, Levi said with a smile. This made Thunderbird have a lot of goodwill towards him. American Comics. Opening sign in Accelerator 12. American Comics. Opening sign in Accelerator. Chapter 12 Rescue the Polaris Project. It's not that we don't want to rescue Lorna, it's that we don't know where Lorna is being held at all. Thunderbird answered Levi's question just now with a helpless expression. But we can't do nothing all the time. Marcos on the side was a little excited, and it could be seen that he cared about Lorna very much. Thunderbird was silent for a while, until he knew where Lorna was being held. He really had nothing to do. Leave this to me, Levi said again. To you. Can you find Lorna's location? Thunderbird frowned. Wes, can you really find Lorna's location? Clarice also looked at him a little excitedly. Maybe I can't, but Professor X certainly can. The energy of X-Men is still very large, and Professor X's telepathy ability can be said to be the strongest at present. It should not be difficult to perceive the specific location of Lorna. Professor X. Everyone was happy to hear this name. After all, Professor X is also very prestigious among all mutants. Then please, Thunderbird said seriously, as mutants help each other as it should. Levi's didn't have a bad impression of this guy, and as Lorna was Magneto's daughter, it was necessary to save her. Otherwise, if Magneto knew that his daughter was arrested and tortured, he would have directly overturned the entire city of Mexico. At that time, the contradiction between mutant and humans may be completely intensified and become an endless situation. That's not what Levi's wants to see. After all, he's on the mutant side these days. Soon, he called Storm, and then quickly told Storm about the current situation. Storm learned that Magneto's daughter was arrested, and knew that the matter was very serious, so he immediately reported the matter to Professor X. Weiss, don't act rashly for now. I will find out where Polaris is being held as soon as possible, and then you will be rescuing. Professor X kept telling him not to act impulsively on the other end of the phone. Don't worry, Professor, I understand. He definitely wouldn't be impulsive, and he didn't need to be impulsive. After all, he didn't even know where Polaris was locked up right now. He remembered it appeared in the TV series, but he couldn't remember it for too long. After hanging up the phone, Levi's turned to look at Thunderbird and smiled. It's done. If Professor X makes a move, I believe Lorna's specific location will be found soon. Great. Everyone was very happy when they got this news. Wes, thank you. Clarice thanked him tenderly. No thanks, it should be. Levi smiled nonchalantly. Brother Weiss, let me introduce you to everyone. At this time, Thunderbird enthusiastically pulled him and introduced him to the members of the Mutant Underground organization. The strength of these mutants is not strong, most of them are in the first or second level. The strongest Thunderbirds and Polaris are just barely reaching the third level mutant. Thunderbird's super ability is very comprehensive. He has super hearing and perception, super strength, and even indestructible. It can be said that the body has evolved in all directions. This ability makes Levi's a little envious. If he can sign up for this ability, then the improvement brought to him is huge amounts of. It's a pity that the number of sign-ins today has been used up, and we can only wait for tomorrow. There are so many super abilities in the underground, many of them are very good. Levi's decided to stay here and sign them all. It didn't take long. Soon Storm called again, and they had found where Lorna was being held. After hanging up the phone, Thunderbird asked anxiously, how is it? Where is Lorna being held? Levi's nodded. Don't worry. It's been found. It's in the mutant holding area in the Garland Detention Center. Then what are you waiting for? Let's go save Lorna. Marcos was about to go out after speaking, but was stopped by Thunderbird. The Garland detention facility is Sentry Secret Service territory, and it's dangerous and we can't be so reckless. As a detention center dedicated to detaining mutants, it is not so easy to break in. Maybe they will get in. As a special organization specializing in the study of mutants, the Sentry Secret Service has developed a lot of weapons against mutants, and the general mutants are really not resistant. Levi's couldn't help but nodded when he heard this. This Thunderbird is worthy of being one of the leaders of the underground organization. But if he was there, it wouldn't be so troublesome. How sure are you, Thunderbird, that you can rescue Lorna? Thunderbird couldn't help frowning when he heard his words. He really wasn't sure if he broke in, but if he didn't break in, how could he be able to rescue Lorna in the detention center? Everyone also fell silent. Most of them did not have much combat power, and there was no way to fight against the special weapons of the Sentry Secret Service. It's unrealistic to try to force it, unless Magneto is here. Those people who want to force their way through are all about delivering food. And Levi's remembered that in the Sentry Secret Service, there was a mutant controlled by Dr. Campbell, Thunderbird's good brother Gus. Maybe this name is very unfamiliar to people, but his ability will definitely not make everyone unfamiliar. Because Gus's super ability is to interfere with electricity, but also to make other mutants' super ability ineffective. Once mutants' super ability is invalid, it will be no different from ordinary people. American Comics. Opening sign in Accelerator 13. Chapter 13. The most direct way is to force. Just when everyone was silent, Levi's added, "Actually, this matter is very simple, just leave it to me." "Leave it to you?" Thunderbird was a little puzzled, not understanding what he meant. "That's right. What can you do? Could it be Professor X?" Thunderbird guessed that Professor X should help. "Don't worry when I go out." Levi's gave him a reassuring look. "I'll go with you," Clarice said. "No problem, but when the time comes, you can meet outside." "Okay, I'll make arrangements now." Thunderbird nodded, and then called in a few mutants with decent combat power. "Let's go, let's go." Levi's waved his hands to leave without any nonsense, but suddenly stopped when he was at the door, and he turned to look at the crowd. "By the way, how should I get to the Garland Detention Center?" Quote. Inside the car, Levi's was a little embarrassed. He was really unfamiliar with him when he first came to Mexico City. Definitely, he will never admit that he is a bit lunatic. Seeing his embarrassed look, Clarice on the side couldn't help laughing. 2 hours later, they finally arrived at the Garland Detention Center. From a distance, the door is heavily guarded, and people who are actually looting nuclear bombs are constantly patrolling. After everyone got out of the car, Thunderbird said to Levi's, "We can't get close anymore. If we are found, it will be troublesome." "Well, it's all right, leave it to me next." "What are you going to do? Has X-Men sent someone?" Thunderbird wondered. No one was sent, but I'm enough." Levi's shrugged and smiled. In fact, he didn't have any plans, he just wanted to try his ability. With vector operations, he has no worries at all. "Hey, brother, you're not kidding." Harry, the black man on the side, looked at him in disbelief, thinking he was joking. "Brother Weiss, this place is no different than an ordinary detention center. There are people from the Sentry Secret Service who specialize in weapons against mutant." Thunderbird thought he was unfamiliar with the place and explained. "No, I'm never kidding, you guys just stay here and pick up, I'll bring Lorna out." After finishing speaking, Levi's did not continue to talk nonsense, and walked directly towards the gate of the Garland Detention Center. Seeing this, everyone looked at each other, wondering if they should stop him. "Wait, I'll go with you." Clarice stood in front of him. "My ability is teleportation. If you find Lorna, you can use my ability to escape." No need." Levi's shook his head and refused. He didn't want to escape at all, and he also had room to move and could come out at any time. Clarice saw that he refused and never saw it again. "By the way, who of you has a mask for me to take?" Levi suddenly looked at everyone and said. In order not to reveal his identity, he decided to disguise a little. Quote. Everyone looked at each other, but soon the Black Harry found an old cartoon mask in the car. "Thanks." Levi's took the mask and put it on, looking a little funny, but it didn't matter. He just swaggered towards the gate of the Garland Detention Center. The Thunderbirds and the others behind him stared at him closely. Once something happened, they would rescue him as soon as possible. Stop. As he approached the gate of the Garland Detention Center, Levi's was spotted by guards at the gate. Good evening, gentlemen. Levi's raised his hand in greeting. Stop, or else shoot. The guard at the door obviously didn't mean to greet him, the black muzzle was aimed at him, and it was possible to shoot at any time. However, Levi's didn't stop at all, still swaggering over. The Thunderbirds who were observing all this not far away were a little nervous. Boom. When the guard at the door saw that he did not stop, he shot decisively. The gunfire was very loud under the night sky. And when the bullet hit Levi's, it bounced back instantly, hitting the arm of the shooting guard. The guard let out a pained cry, and the rifle in his hand fell directly to the ground. It's mutant, one of the guards shouted when he saw something wrong, and the entire Garland Detention Center sounded the alarm. Bang bang bang. The rest of the guards all raised their guns and fired at Levi's. In this metal storm, he continued to walk forward indifferently, without stopping at all. And all the bullets that came over were not unexpected, all of them were reflected. Some unlucky guards were hit directly by bullets that bounced back. Stop shooting, ordinary bullets are useless for him, use the stun gun. At this time, under the order of one of the guards, all the guards took out stun guns specially designed to deal with mutant. As long as this stun gun is hit, it will lose its combat effectiveness in an instant. Stun gun, this one won't work for me. Levi smiled and shook his head and moved on. Sure enough, I saw that the electric current of the stun gun hit him and was still reflected. All guards holding stun guns were knocked down by the reflected electric current. Levi's was so unstoppable into the detention center. The news of the mutant breaking into the Garland Detention Center quickly reached the ears of his superiors. American Comics. Opening sign in Accelerator 14. American Comics. Opening sign in Accelerator. Chapter 14 Finding Polaris Successfully. Dr. Campbell is the head of the Sentry Secret Service. After learning the news, he immediately ordered his sentry to bring weapons to support. At the same time, Levi's had come to the place where the prisoners were being held, and in front of him was a group of guards with guns. Every time he took a step forward, the guards took a step back. It looks kind of funny. Gentlemen, can you tell me where mutant is being held? Levi's couldn't help teasing as he watched the guards keep retreating in panic. But no one answered him. Well, I knew it would be like this. Levi's shrugged helplessly. Not asking the Thunderbirds for a map was his biggest mistake. Because the entire detention area is very large, and he has not visited the detention center, he has no idea where the area where mutant is being held is. This is a bit of a hassle. But there is no way, who made him a little crazy. After a while, after visiting most of the detention centers, he finally found the mutant detention area. There are not too many mutant held here, and soon he found the cell where Miss Polaris was held. Hey, is there anyone in there? Levi's pushed open the door of the cell, gently, and saw a green-haired girl with a beautiful face lying weakly on the ground. She is Miss Polaris. At the moment, Polaris's condition was not good. She saw blood flowing from her nose and mouth. At a glance, she knew that it was because of forcibly using ability, which caused the collar-like device on her neck to release electric current. Generally speaking, this kind of electric current will not kill people, but using ability forcefully is also life-threatening. Hey, are you okay? Levi's patted Polaris on the cheek. Only one handsome figure could be seen in Polaris days. Oh, forget it. Looking at the confused Polaris, he decisively gave up his plan to wake her up, and then put Polaris on his back. Leaving the cell, the surrounding guards hurriedly retreated. Levi's just carried Polaris on his back and swaggered towards the outside. Save us, please. Please let us out. The mutants in the cell seemed to know that a mutant was coming to save people, so they all began to cry for help. Levi's thought about it and let all these mutants out. I destroyed your collars. It's up to you whether you can escape. Levi's are not babysitters, and letting them out would have done the best thing possible. After helping these mutants break the collars around their necks, he ignored them and walked straight outside. Some mutants use ability to run away, and some mutants still follow him. The ability of these mutants is relatively weak, and they simply cannot escape alone. Levi's didn't bother to pay attention to them either. Outside the detention center, at the moment Thunderbird, Clarice and others all looked at the gate of the detention center anxiously. What to do? The reinforcements from Sentry's Secret Service are here. Clarice was a little anxious. Just now, reinforcements from the Sentry Secret Service arrived, which made everyone very worried. Don't worry, since Weiss has the confidence to go in alone, there must be a way to save people. Thunderbird can only comfort everyone like this. Meanwhile on the other side, Levi's walked out as if in a no-man's land, carrying Polaris on his back. Along the way, the guards only dared to surround them in the distance, but did not dare to shoot. Besides, even if you shoot, you can't hurt the opponent in the slightest, and you may be injured by the reflected bullet, or even killed by your own bullet. No one wants to take this risk. Levi's didn't bother with them either, as long as it didn't get in the way. However, at this moment, a spider-like robot suddenly appeared in front of him. He recognized at a glance that this little robot was a weapon developed by the Sentry Secret Service to deal with mutants. These robots have sharp legs and can crawl on walls and ceilings. And there is a strong electric current attached to it, which will release the electric current once it is hugged by this little Spider-Man. The average mutant simply can't take such a shock. And this little Spider-Man robot is not easy to be damaged, even if a few spider legs are broken, it can still walk normally. The little Spider-Man, with red lights flashing above his head, pounced straight at him after finding his target. Levi stood in front of him with one hand, and after little Spider-Man touched his hand, he was instantly ejected and scrapped. However, just after one was solved, more little Spider-Man robots surrounded from the front. Oh, I don't know how much this thing costs. It doesn't look cheap. The corners of Levi's mouth twitched slightly. The next moment, I saw a layer of ice freezing from under his feet. The ice continued to spread forward, and all the little Spider-Man passed by were frozen in place. But in the blink of an eye, the entire passage was covered with a layer of ice. This is Levi's freeze mastery, which freezes everything. This scene also shocked the mutants behind him. And Polaris, who had woken up at some point on his back, was also a little surprised to see this scene. Not afraid of any bullets and electric current, and can instantly freeze everything in front of you. The man in front of him is really powerful and terrifying. Who is this man? Polaris was a little shocked, but what made her even more shocked was still behind. American Comics. Opening sign in Accelerator 15. American Comics. Opening sign in Accelerator. Chapter 15. Rescue Polaris with ease. Levi's didn't stop, he continued on, but he was at the gate of the detention center in a moment. At the moment there are already a lot of sentry blocks at the door. Yet at this time, the mutants who followed him suddenly fell to the ground without warning. What's going on? Levi's was a little puzzled. I don't know. Ability suddenly doesn't work. Someone interfered with our ability. Hearing these people's words, Levi's reacted, and the person who made these mutant ability invalid is probably Gus, the good brother of Thunderbird. The mutant who can make other people's super ability ineffective. However, Levi's has no effect on this, and the vector operation will automatically reflect substances that are harmful to him. Don't resist and surrender now, or we'll shoot. The sentry from the Sentry Secret Service were very happy that most of the mutants had collapsed in front of them, but they didn't dare to go forward easily, so they could only shout with a loudspeaker. Levi's wanted to use teleportation to leave, but after seeing the many mutants behind him, he decided to help them. His eyes swept across his eyes, and in an instant he found Gus, who was interfering with mutant ability. If you don't deal with this guy, it's impossible for the mutant behind him to escape. Immediately after that, he used the freeze control with all his strength, and the next moment saw that the ground continued to condense frost. But in the blink of an eye, the frost spread to the feet of the sentry. The sentry kept backing away in fear, but they were still too slow. After being covered by frost, the ankles of these people were frozen in place in an instant, making them unable to move. Fire. In desperation, the chief of the Sentry Secret Service could only order the shooting. The next moment, the sentry all raised their stun guns and fired. Levi's wasn't afraid of electric shocks, but Polaris and the other mutants behind him certainly couldn't take it. So he waved one hand, and instantly an ice wall blocked in front of everyone. The ice cubes can conduct electricity, and these electric shocks hit the ice cubes, and then go directly to the frozen person along the frost on the ground. For a while, the Sentry Secret Service screamed again and again, and the frost on the ground continued to spread. For a moment, all of Sentry's feet were frozen to the ground. Gus's interference with Mutant also disappeared. Okay, let's run for your own life. Levi's waved to the mutants behind him, then he used Space Move to come to Gus and grab him, and then used Space Move again to disappear in front of everyone. The whole process is but a moment. Seeing this, the other mutants also hurriedly fled. The Sentry Secret Service and others, who were frozen in place, were powerless to stop them. Thunderbird and the others who saw this scene not far away had their eyes widened in disbelief. They couldn't imagine that Levi's really rescued the person by himself. And it took no effort at all to deal with the people at Sentry's Secret Service. Especially when Thunderbird saw his good brother appear, he was even more surprised. He knows the ability of his good brother, and as long as he is disturbed, the super ability mutant is just a lamb to be slaughtered. Unexpectedly, Levi's was not affected at all, which is incredible. Hey, guys, it's time to go. At this time, Levi's voice appeared behind everyone, and Thunderbird and Clarice were all taken aback. Levi's grinned and said, I don't know if you recognize the mutant Thunderbird. It's amazing to have the ability to interfere with the mutant ability. Yes, I definitely know him. He is my good brother Gus, but unfortunately he was caught before. Thunderbird took Gus and said excitedly. Oh, then hand him over to you, but you have to be careful, he seems to be controlled by transformation. Levi's definitely knew that Gus was Thunderbird's brother, and that it was only a matter of time to save him. Moreover, the ability that can invalidate the mutant ability cannot be left at the Sentry Special Service, otherwise even the level of Professor X may be disturbed. Lorna, are you okay? Clarice then looked at Polaris with concern. She seems to have been stunned by the collar on her neck by forcibly using ability. Levi's explained helplessly. As long as someone is rescued. Thunderbird was relieved to see that Lorna was okay. Thank you, please give her to me. At this time Marcos came over to take the Polaris behind him. Levi's was about to put Polaris down, but found that his neck seemed to be held tightly. I can't seem to put it down. He wondered if Polaris had already woken up, otherwise, how could he hold him so tightly? Let's go back first, it's not safe here, Thunderbird said to everyone. Seeing this, Marcos had to give up the plan to take over Polaris. The group got into the car and quickly left the Garland Detention Center. Inside the car, Levi's looked at Polaris, who had already woken up, with a confused look on his face. He didn't expect that the guess just now was true, and Polaris had already woken up. Introduce myself, my name is Lorna, thank you very much for saving me. Lorna stroked his hair lightly, then extended his hand to him. My name is Levi's. Levi's smiled and took her hand. Looking at the water spirit that Lorna, who is only 18 or 19 years old, is really born, it is not like the rough skin of Westerners at all. It can be said that this age is the peak moment of Western appearance. It is no wonder that Miss Polaris attracted countless fans back then, and her appearance was very good. Even with Levi's aesthetics, I appreciate it very much. Please like and subscribe.